In tonight's news edition, the Prime Minister says despite hardships, Jordan has made key development milestones which it owes to the uniting role of its leadership. Syria's Prime Minister survives a car bomb attack as a controversy over the use of chemical weapons persists. And at least 24 Iraqis are killed in a fresh upsurge of car bombings and shootings. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. We begin with our local news. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour said Jordan has managed to achieve key development milestones despite the huge difficulties it faces. He said His Majesty the King's leadership is behind the achievements as it united Jordanians and closed their ranks. He spoke during a tour of the southern Karag Governorate, where he, accompanied by a number of ministers, met the southern region's executive and advisory councils, as well as popular and academic figures and political party members. He said the kingdom is a model in the Arab world and will surpass the tough years through the cooperation of all Jordanians with their leadership. He said the government will be responsible for any shortcomings in its performance or mismanagement of resources. Mansour, whose government had won a vote of confidence in Parliament, said he was proud of the experience, though tough, calling it a big leap in the reform and democratic process. 3 people were killed and 25 injured in a scuffle that broke out among students at Al Hussein bin Talal University near the southern city of Ma'an. Interior Minister Hussein Al-Majali said gendarmerie police were called in to end the latest campus violence in which firearms were used. Majali said the shooting broke out after a number of persons, including a man wanted for firing on a police patrol earlier, joined in the shooting. He said security forces used tear gas to disperse the students, arrested 22 suspects and seized 4 weapons, 2 automatic. He said the wanted man had fled and a search was underway. Al-Majali said calm was restored in the university, which was marking its anniversary, as police imposed a security cordon preventing entry to the campus. Al Hussein University President Taha Al-Abbadi ordered suspension of classes until Sunday. Public Sector Development Minister Khalifa Al said appointments to key technical jobs in ministries and public institutions will open to fill vacancies. The government of Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour has stopped the recruitment over the past months for fear it could influence the January parliamentary elections and MPs' debate of government policy. The Prime Minister has assured that appointments will be based on merit. But Khawaldi said that filling senior positions will hinge on a real need and available financial allocations. He explained that filling vacancies will go according to Civil Service Bureau regulations, assuring that the government will hold all forms of appointments outside the government job manning table. He vowed that any breaches would be dealt with firmly and offenders will be referred to the Anti-Corruption Commission. Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources Malik Kabariti opened an exhibition of energy management and efficiency companies on display at the fair organized by the Jordan Green Building Council, where products showcasing technologies to promote energy efficiency in productivity installations. The exhibition provides an opportunity for experts to communicate with participating energy management firms and offers counsel on increasing energy efficiency in productivity facilities. Members of the Senate Population and Development Commission took a tour in the Mafraq Governorate to check firsthand on the quality of services amid the influx of more Syrian refugees into the northern border region. The group highlighted the key needs of the city, including services and service projects. Hibal Atoum has the story.
Women, children and old people are the block of about 1,400 Syrian refugees crossing into Jordan over the past 24 hours. The Jordan Armed Forces said guards manning border crossings were helping the displaced people who made it after the journey through rough terrain. The director of Zaatari, the largest Syrian refugee camp, said a total of over 45,000 Syrian refugees have voluntarily returned to their country. He added that 300 to 400 refugees a day say they are willing to return home, although they are receiving housing, food, and medical care in the refugee camp. Abu Shahab said there are 10,000 caravans set up in the Zaatari camp, adding that 25,000 tents will be replaced by caravans in the next 2 months to improve the refugees' living conditions. The head of the Senate Population and the Development Commission, Senator Nawal Faouri, called for foreign help to Jordan due to the huge inflow of refugees. During a tour of Mafraq to check on the quality of services, she said repercussions of the Syrian crisis and the rapid increase of the refugee population in the northern region will not only affect the kingdom but the entire region as well.
There has to be a better stand by world nations as Jordan needs support. His Majesty the King is doing his best in calling for aid to help the kingdom in this matter. After we deliberate the issue in the Senate, we will pass recommendations to the government to write to all countries to assist Jordan in tackling these escalating challenges.
The Senate panel members have met the Mafraq governor and heads of relief agencies on how best to deal with the refugee dilemma. Hiba Al-Atoum for the News at 10.
Syrian Prime Minister Wael al-Halqi survived a bomb attack on his convoy in the capital Damascus. Fighting also raged across the country amid the controversy over the use of chemical weapons in the conflict. The issue has become a crucial factor that could lead to Western powers stepping up their involvement in the civil war. Luay Balqar has an update.
Bombers struck again in the heart of Damascus. A car bomb went off near Mount Mezza, the home of President Bashar al-Assad's palace, and several military and government institutions. The explosion targeted the convoy of the Syrian Prime Minister in the heart of Damascus, leaving at least 10 people dead, including the Prime Minister's bodyguard and many others injured. The convoy escaped the blast, leaving heavily damaged cars and debris in the area as firefighters fought to extinguish a large blaze set off by the explosion. The Prime Minister attended a meeting after surviving the attack and answered questions by reporters, although none of the journalists asked about the bomb attack. For months, Syrian rebels had been trying to break into Damascus in their attempt to oust the regime, while Assad's forces had been trying to dislodge rebels from several outlying districts south and east of the capital. Damascus was under fierce airstrikes and shelling. The airstrikes targeted Daria and Ghouta, and in Berzeh, where at least 9 people were killed and 70 were wounded. Meantime, Russia sounded another warning about the West's concern on allegations that Syria has used chemical weapons. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the attempts by Western countries to expand a UN probe into chemical weapons in Syria amounted to a pretext to intervene in the Syrian civil war.
There are probably governments and a number of external players who believe that in order to overthrow the Syrian regime, all means are fine. But the theme of using weapons of mass destruction is too serious, and we shouldn't joke about it.
French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius said his country will carry out its own investigation into whether chemical weapons were used in Syria. If it proved true that chemical weapons were used in Syria, he said, then it changes things quite a bit. A Syrian pro-government newspaper reported that many soldiers battling rebels in a restive neighborhood of Damascus have shown symptoms of exposure to chemical gas. It said the symptoms include suffocation and nausea, as well as the trickling of a kind of a white liquid from the victims' noses and mouths. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said preparations for a probe into the use of chemical weapons have begun, and the Swedish scientist heading the investigation mission is ready to depart within days.
Dr. Selstrom and his team of experts remain ready to deploy to Syria within 24 to 48 hours. An advanced team is positioned in Cyprus, as you know.
Over 2 years of bloodshed and destruction, Syria is deeper and deeper in violence and faces these scenarios of bad, worse and worst. Loy Balkar for the news at 10.
Bombers also struck in about half a dozen locations in neighboring Iraq, leaving at least 23 people dead. The latest upsurge in car bombs and militant attacks took the week's death toll to nearly 200. Meanwhile, Iraq's media regulator said the government had nothing to do with its decision to suspend the licenses of 10 satellite news networks, including Al Jazeera. The Communication and Media Commission regulator accused the networks of inciting violence. Khaled Babni has more on the violence.
Sectarian violence is on the rise in predominantly Shiite areas of southern Iraq. At least 23 people were killed in the latest spike in mostly car bombs and shootings. A deadly raid by security forces on a Sunni protest camp near Kirkuk last Tuesday triggered clashes that quickly spread to other Sunni areas in western and northern provinces. At least 9 people were killed and 40 wounded in 2 car bomb explosions in Amara, 300 kilometers southeast of Baghdad. The first blast ripped through a market where people were meeting for breakfast, while the second hit an area where laborers had gathered to look for daily work.
The first blast took place at nearly 6:28 in the morning, followed by a second one 50 seconds later. The blast took place in 15 Shaban's district, and it targeted municipality workers who are poor.
Another car bomb exploded in a market in Ad-Diwaniyah, 150 kilometers south of Baghdad, killing 2 people.
I saw the bodies of 4 men lying dead here. I saw them with my own eyes, and one of them was headless. May God have mercy on their souls. 1 vehicle was burned, and all the shops were damaged.
Another target was a busy market in the holy city of Karbala, where a car bomb killed at least 3 people. A further 4 were killed in an explosion near a Shiite workshop site in Al-Mahmudiyah, about 30 kilometers south of Baghdad. In the north, gunmen clashed with the army in the city of Mosul, killing 2 soldiers and wounding 3 others. A sniper shot dead a soldier and wounded another while they were on patrol in Al-Mada'in in eastern Baghdad. Demonstrations against the government of Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki eased in the past month. But this week's army raid on a protest camp in Al-Huwaija near Kirkuk, 170 kilometers north of Baghdad, stoked Sunni anger and appears to have given insurgents more momentum. Khaled Babni for the news at 10.
Greeks woke up to more austerity measures a day after lawmakers approved a reform law to unlock about $8.9 billion of rescue loans from the EU and the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The law passed easily with the solid backings of the 3 parties comprising Greece's ruling coalition. The law implements an agreement Athens struck with the EU and the IMF inspectors earlier this month, which allow them to state that the country was on track to meet its bailout targets. Aliya Toqad has the details.
Though the measures are tough, they are necessary. For the first time in the country's history, the Greek parliament passed into law late yesterday mass civil service job cuts as part of the latest reforms requested from international lenders before the release of the next bailout and installments to Athens. The bill included measures to dismiss 15,000 civil servants by next year, more property taxes, longer working hours for teachers, privatization of state entities, and the shutting down of state organizations.
We're going through a very difficult path, but this is going to be a success story.
Critics of the new legislation protesting outside Parliament said the fresh policies will only add to the Greek people's woes. "You are destroying our lives," read this banner outside Parliament.
What we are facing is a tragedy, really. Apart the reduction of our salaries, that there is a big fear about our teaching positions. We estimate that around 8,500 teachers, they are going to lose their jobs. At the same time, we are losing working relation with the public sector.
But there are those that hope the pain will ultimately move the country forward.
Some things are unpleasant, but what can be done? Is there a better choice? Who wants to hear about firings? No one. That is the worst. As far as the other measures, well, something needs to be done and is being done.
Unemployment and poverty have been fueled by waves of painful wage cuts and tax hikes imposed in return for rescue loans over the past 3 years under bailout deals reached in order to keep Greece afloat inside the Eurozone. In a meeting today, Eurozone officials were due to approve payment of another 2.8 billion euros in rescue loans, and the rest is expected to be released in mid-May. Ali Tuqan, News at 10.
The leaders of Russia and Japan have agreed to step up efforts to resolve a long-turning territorial dispute. The feud over 4 Pacific islands, which Russia calls the Southern Kurils and Japan calls the Northern Territories, has prevented the nations from signing a peace treaty to end World War II. President Vladimir Putin said after talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe that both leaders had instructed their ministers to step up contacts to work out mutually acceptable options. But they gave no indication that the meeting had produced any further progress towards a resolution. The Moscow summit was the first between the two countries' leaders in a decade. During the meeting, Putin said there was great potential to expand trade between the two countries. The dispute has prevented Russia and Japan from concluding a peace treaty and clouded ties for decades.
I am certain that we will discuss our key problems today, including the peace treaty between Russia and Japan. We will also discuss some major issues on the region in general. So we have a big agenda for today, and I would like to highlight it again.
While April 30th is Queen's Day in the Netherlands, tomorrow takes a different turn. Netherlands Crown Prince William Alexander will be inaugurated as king. Queen Beatrix will tomorrow sign an instrument of abdication, whereupon William Alexander becomes king and Princess Maxima, originally from Argentina, becomes queen. The prince and his family arrived at the Royal Palace in Amsterdam for a final rehearsal of the inauguration ceremony. The city of Amsterdam is set to put on a royal show for an estimated 800,000 residents and visitors, including Britain's Prince Charles and Japan's Crown Princess Masako. A Spanish journalist said the abdication of Queen Beatrix will be closely watched in Spain, as the Spanish are wondering when their own king will decide to step down. He's performed acts of acrobatics over lethal drops across the world, including walking a tightrope between 2 hot balloons. Now, this Norwegian extreme artist performed his stunts over a deep gorge in central China. Eskil Ronningsbukken put himself in a series of dangerous positions on the Ace-High suspension bridge, which hangs 330 meters over the canyon in the central province of Hunan. He started by lifting his body over chairs stacked in different arrangements as he spread his legs out. Then he climbed over a pole attached to the bridge and held his body over the edge without any safety harness. Not only that, he also balanced on a trapeze hanging from a hot air balloon. And for the final stunt, he donned a blindfold.
整个的风力呢是相对来说比较大的，所以说呢，在完成这。
Rafael Nadal defeated fellow Spaniard Nicolas Almagro 6-4, 6-3 to win the Barcelona Open for the 8th time in 9 years. With this victory, 5th seed Nadal becomes the first player to win 4 titles this year. 4th seed Almagro made a whirlwind start, breaking Nadal's first 2 service games in cloudy, drizzly conditions on the clay of the court. But Nadal battled back with 3 breaks of serve to take the first set. The French Open champion broke again early in the second set and steadily pulled away to secure a 39th consecutive win in Barcelona. Nadal's next tournament is the Madrid Open, which begins on May 5th. A day before the Champions League semi-final second leg clash against Borussia Dortmund, Real Madrid coach Jose Mourinho said that Real forward Cristiano Ronaldo will play in the squad. In a press conference, Mourinho refused to name the starting 11 for the Champions League clash, but confirmed that Ronaldo was match fit. Real needs a 3-0 win tomorrow to qualify for the Champions League final match. Mourinho denied that tomorrow's match could make an impact on his career as Real Madrid coach.
Future doesn't depend on that. I told that before. And it's a pity that people read the newspaper, but after that they don't read when Klopp says, I never told him I was going to Chelsea.
Now let's have a look at the weather. Nice weather tonight in most regions with easterly light to moderate winds. Relatively hot conditions are in the forecast tomorrow, with temperatures in the low 30s in most areas with some high clouds. Winds will be northerly moderate. Hot weather is expected in the Gulf of Aqaba, while winds will be northerly moderate and seas calm. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here is a reminder of our top stories. The Prime Minister says, despite hardships, Jordan has made key development milestones, which it owes to the uniting role of its leadership. Syria's Prime Minister survives a car bomb attack as the controversy over the use of chemical weapons persists. And at least 24 Iraqis are killed in a fresh upsurge of car bombings and shootings. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I am Raad Liptoush. Thanks for watching and have a good night.